Welcome to Beyond the Prep, a podcast dedicated to providing information and insights into the bodybuilding sport. This podcast covers a wide range of topics from finding a coach to the struggling of competing, nutrition, supplements, cost, and much more. I'll be talking with competitors so you can hear their stories, judges, coaches. If you're interested in sharing your story, send me a note at skapach40@gmail.com. Welcome to Beyond the Prep. I am your host, Sherry Capach, and I'd like to welcome today Jordan and Lila. They've just finished competing this weekend at the TNT. And welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
How long have you been bodybuilding for?
For myself, I was actually the youngest person on stage at my first competition, which was held in Halifax, back in Nova Scotia. At the age of 15 years old, I was on stage.
Yeah. Wow.
So I've been doing this now for 17 years. I've been competing.
Wow. So how did that feel, being the youngest on stage?
Honestly, when you're in the local gym, everybody thinks you're gonna win. You're in the best shape in that gym. I was 15 years old. I had a lot of people, tell me you should compete, you would do so well. So yeah, I definitely dieted hard for that. I done it myself. I really didn't know what I was doing. But I do remember getting up there backstage and seeing how big the guys were, and I wanted to leave my sweater up. I'll tell you that. But actually, when I had gotten there, and I remember being backstage pumping up and all the guys being so supportive, and once they realized how young I was, they couldn't believe the shape I was in at that age. And that year, to come to think about it, I was on stage with 30, 40-year-old men. I was old enough to be their son, right? So it was a really good experience. And from that day on, I was absolutely hooked. So I went from doing that competition and competing every year after. I ended up winning that show the fifth year into competing, or sort of my fourth year. I ended up winning that show. I took a little break as we have children, and as you know, that can be a lot. So I did take a little break. This year, past weekend at TNT was my first time competing in 5.5 years. So yeah, so it was nice to get back up there and get back into the groove of things. So yeah, I started 17 years ago.
Yeah, that's young. That's young to be on stage for sure.
Yes, yeah.
So, and how about you, Lila? How long have you been into the bodybuilding?
I actually start with 2017, but not 2017, 17 years old, sorry.
Wow.
And kind of get into bodybuilding about maybe 2 years ago, to try to figure out how to build a body, how to get into competition, but not actually do anything that time. Yeah. Just start listening. Oh, maybe I can do this show, or something like that. Yeah.
So how was it prepping together?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
It had its ups and downs. We do have 3 children.
Wow.
So between juggling, school pickup, drop-offs, the home life of having children, I work anywhere from 13 to 14 hours a day. So I was gone a lot. She was managing everything here alone. She also has a meal prep company from the house. So we were both extremely busy. But that being said, I do feel like it did have its benefits as well, where we both were having the same goals in mind. And we were both on a restricted diet and training and cardio regimen. So we did all that together, which I did feel like it did make things a little bit easier. Obviously, towards the tail end, as you know, the diet gets pretty difficult. So we definitely had our moments. But yeah, no, other than that, it was pretty good overall. Like I said, it was Layla's first show ever, so she didn't really know what to expect. I just kept saying trust the process. Her coach Cass kept laying out the plans. I would go over things with her, and yeah, and she ended up doing very well. So but to answer your question earlier with Layla, so we've been in the gym training, not towards a specific goal for her. She's always been in the gym training, but it wasn't until honestly 12 weeks before the TNT,
Oh,
she decided to take it serious. She just came to me and she's like, I want to compete. Let's do it. So I said, if you want to do it, let's do it. So it's pretty impressive to see that she just had the 12 weeks of consistency of actually following a set plan. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing what she can do in Vancouver, and then taking a full year of actually taking this, to another level and taking it more serious and see what you can accomplish, right? So, but yeah, overall, doing it together it was like I said, I feel like it worked out for the best, because having that structured same routine every day together makes it a lot easier.
right. How is it when you have children? Because you feed them differently and there's different foods. Like, how do you guys handle that part of it?
As far as the foods and stuff, it doesn't. Both of us are pretty strict. Like,
We prep everything. Like we get everything ready for our kids. And
it doesn't really bother us. The only thing I did find very difficult throughout prep with children is feeling like you're neglecting them. Like the final couple of weeks, it's pretty selfish. The sport can be pretty selfish, because like for instance, I'd be gone for 14 hours work, dad come home and the kids be like, oh, daddy's home, and I'll excite it. I would have 15-20 minutes, like, hey, daddy got to go to the gym now. Out the door I go, right? And so that part was probably the most difficult. As far as the eating and the kids being kids wasn't so bad, because we're both pretty disciplined when we have a goal in mind, so the food didn't really bother either one of us. But yeah, that was probably the most difficult part, having children throughout the prep, is feeling like you're neglecting them, right? And not having that extra time with them that they need. And yeah, in like the final week, your energy levels are pretty much gone. So yeah, but that was probably the most difficult part.
Yeah. Yeah, because when you're at the gym, I mean, you're even at the gym for a couple hours. It's not just in and out, right?
Well, that's just it, right? And the lifestyle we live is, like I said, like we work from anywhere from 12 to 14 hours almost every day. So between doing our cardio in the morning, work, training in the evenings, it was definitely a lot to manage and juggle. But luckily, our two oldest, they understand, so it wasn't so bad. But our youngest is 4, so I found that pretty challenging. But
Yeah.
we got through it.
Yeah. And how did you find, Lila, how did you find it doing your first competition?
It's very excited and nervous, but outcome is very good. I'm prepared for that. I know it's what is coming, and I just do my best that day. Yeah. I saw all the girls. Oh wow, they look so great. And just
Nice.
shout. Yeah.
Nice. And how did you guys do this weekend?
I ended up taking 3rd place in middleweight. Layla ended up winning the overall, the wellness division.
It's amazing. Job well done.
Yes, so we decided to send her to Vancouver. I am qualified to do it, but I decided to take another year. I did drop 12.5 pounds the day before the show to make middleweight, which was I'm kind of regretting doing now, because I did sacrifice the look. I feel like if I had stayed where I should have been, the outcome would have been better. Not necessarily placing wise, but my look for sure. But yeah, I decided to not do it and focus on Layla for the last 2 weeks, just to put everything into the prep and be there by her side and be able to support her, make sure I don't miss anything at all. So yeah, so we're very excited that she's going there, and she can't wait. Like I said, she doesn't know what to expect. She didn't know what to expect leading into this one. Everything's completely new to her. So I'm sure I'm seeing lots of her now because I'm sure she'll be pretty hooked after this.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of just get that, I don't know, that competitor's high or something. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll try it. And it's like, okay, when's the next one? What's the next one?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I had explained to her too. Like I did take the 5.5 years off just to focus on the children and my career and stuff. But you always get the itch, right? Even when you think you're done, you'll get that competitive itch back and you're like, you know what? I kind of miss it. Or you know what? I got one more in me. And it's just very repetitive, right? Because I feel like for the both of us too, it's almost like you said, it's almost like you almost get some sort of high out of it. It's like it's the process of going through and seeing how far you can push your body mentally and physically. Because you know yourself, like the gym is pretty much the easy part. The training and stuff is fun. But once you get to a level of conditioning where your body fat gets so low, it's such a mental thing. You have to have so much discipline to keep pushing. You know, I don't know how many times the two of us, we would be doing faster cardio side by side and be like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. Why are we doing this? And knowing that you can just mentally feel like you're breaking and quitting, and then within 10 minutes, there's just a switch goes off and you're like, no, I got this. 20 more minutes, 30 more minutes. And it's that's kind of where our drive comes from, to see how far we can really push it without, without breaking really. And so once you get up there, it's like, I made it. So for me, placing and stuff like that, I had won shows in the past, I've lost. At the end of the day, you're still a winner when you get there. Like if you're able to push yourself and get to through the final stretch and make it there, to me, that's a win on its own, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just making it to stage, be proud of that for sure.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I'm glad to hear that you said that it's like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? And then you just push through it, because even being at the show this weekend gave me that extra motivation, because there's a couple weeks left and seeing everybody, it was like just the switch went on going, this is it.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely motivating. And like I said, it's a lot of it's mental, right? Your mind will quit 100 times over before your body will. So yeah, that's pretty much what motivates the two of us. Because I know, and you know yourself, being a competitor, having days where you feel like you just want to give up, and not giving up and getting up the next day and having that motivation back again. You might have an off day, you might have a bad day mentally, and then the next day you're right back into the groove of things, right? And it's just that steady consistency, and that's where the progress will come, right? So
Yeah, for sure. So what do you know now that you wish you would have known then when you first started out? Of course, you were very young. You said you didn't know much about it. What do you wish you did know?
for me personally, there's a few things. One, definitely not rushing into things and feeling like, it's it's not a race to get there, but it's that, and definitely overtraining was a huge thing.
Mm.
Because a lot of people tend to think the more they do, the longer they train, the more results they're going to have, which is the farthest thing from the truth. You have to listen to your body, you have to give it the rest that it needs. My biggest thing was under eating when I first started competing, was feeling like the less I ate, the leaner I would get, which is also the farthest thing from the truth. So those two things for sure: overtraining, rushing things, and under eating. But also another thing is PED use was a big one of mine, because when I started competing at such a young age, I was 15 years old. Obviously, I was a natural competitor. I do remember being 15. I actually placed 7th place at a 15 when I was 15 years old, which was fairly well.
Mhm.
I remember I went back the following year at 16 and I placed 7th again. With, I think there might have been around the same amount of competitors, but obviously the competition was better. So I remember being 16 and being discouraged, being like, well, I didn't do better than last year. So then at 17, I placed fourth. And I remember when I got off stage that year, I did have certain coaches reach out to me looking to help me. And PED talk would already be in the mix. I'm 17 years old, right? And they would people would honestly like make you feel like you have, if you want to do better, this is the route you have to take. And me being so young, I almost did it at 17 because I was so in love with the sport, thinking that, okay, well, this is what I need, right? That being said, I didn't take that path. But I did start on PEDs at 19, which was definitely far too young. That's a big regret of mine. Just knowing that I didn't reach my full potential naturally. I did end up winning that year, of course. And that was kind of what sparked, it was almost like became not an addiction, but it was like, okay, they were right. This is what I needed all along. But it wasn't that. It was just having those extra years of consistency of training, right? So
Right.
that's another one for sure, is wishing that I had held off and didn't go that path at such a young age. But I've learned a lot over the years. So even being a coach myself, that is something that I always tell everybody to hold off on until, you know, if this is something that you want to try to make a career out of, and it's a personal decision, but I definitely feel like it's not needed either. So
Right.
yeah.
And Lila, be doing your first competition and having that structure and all the control that's needed in there. How did you find that compared to like just going to the gym for without competing, compared to the focus that's entailed in competing?
Like going to gym, work out every day is always in my routine. It's easy pass, fun, and for competing, it's like, for me, from the beginning, like I find it's like hard in diet and eating, and because I always eat like my food, whatever I need to eat, I eat it. And but my diet is, this one is kind of hard or easy at the same time, but I really love it. And when you see your body change and your progress, it's made more exciting to see. And then when you go up there, it's more, you know, like the feeling of the wind, and it just made me blow away. I didn't expect that. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So post competition, how do you guys do your, like, she's still competing, you're not. So what kind of plan did you have when you got back home?
So for me, I'm a firm believer in doing a reverse diet. You know, for many reasons, for health reasons, obviously, and for the mental aspect of it all. So I pretty much jumped right back into my diet. So coming home from the show, first thing, I remove all PEDs. I come off everything. I give my body a break. I go right back. Basically, I'm following the same program I was 2 weeks out from the competition, calorie wise, carbohydrate wise. So for the sole reason of like, we had the 2 days of kind of free eating, you'll see the scale rapidly jump up just from fluid retention and water, and you know how all that goes. It's not only not good for your health, but mentally it's very challenging to see your body go from being so lean and just to watch it all go away in a blink of an eye, right? So yeah, so basically I go right back on my diet. Depending on my progress week to week, I still do my check-in photos. I still track my weight as if I was still competing. And basically I slowly want to increase the calories and the carbohydrates week to week as we go, right? Depending on where my body's at. But right now I'm only 2 pounds over stage weight. So yeah. So we took the 2 days, the two of us did, to free eat. The scale jumped up for me, I think 11.5 pounds. Obviously that came down after 3 days being back on the program. Layla's jumped up 10 pounds. Now she's actually the same weight she was show day today.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely reverse diet. Like I said, you put all that hard work in, and just to jump back in, and a lot of people, they don't understand, but you know, you're tracking your sodium intake, your water intake, your calorie intake, your cardio, you know, for all these weeks. And I've made the mistake in the past myself. I remember one year I put 40 pounds on in 2 weeks. I had
Wow.
so much fluid retention in my ankles. My blood pressure was through the roof, just because I thought, well, the diet's over now, right? So, which, you know, this is a lifestyle. This isn't just, you're just not doing this for a show. So over the years, I've definitely learned a lot there. But yeah, definitely a firm believer in reverse dieting. I do have a coach, Morgan McDonald. He also has the same beliefs. So it's really good because he's keeping close tabs on me. And like I said, I'm right back into the program again. And the goal is to probably, over time, I plan on, you know, I do plan on coming back next year. But my plan is to put on probably another 10, 15 pounds of stage weight that I had this year for next year, right? So, but just slowly ease my way into it and do more so, like I said, a health phase on top of that by coming out PEDs and making sure my blood work's in check and everything's in check, right? So that's what's most important.
Yeah. Yeah. So many, like you say, that raising scale right after, right? It could be just almost traumatizing mentally for some people if they're not expecting it.
No,
And
there,
yeah.
that was a big thing I had pretty much tried to drive into Layla's mind too, as well, is because prior to prep, like she had mentioned, she never followed any sort of regimen. She ate whatever she wanted when she wanted. She used to go to the gym. She would train whatever she felt like training that day. Like there was nothing. She obviously was in the gym every day and she loved fitness, but she could get away with eating whatever she wanted and still, you know, be fit and healthy. So I did warn her, like, once you do get into these calorie deficits, like you have been for the last couple of weeks per show, you just can't jump back into doing that, right? So, and I think she realized that after having those 2 days of free eating and looking at the scale, she was like, "Oh my goodness, how am I going to do Vancouver?" You know, and I laughed because I said, "No, like this is a fluid. This will come off in a day or two once you get back going, right?" Which it did. But it definitely scared her. So she's already talking about doing her reverse diet after Vancouver. So
Right.
yeah, it's yeah, like I said, there's a lot to it, but once you figure it out, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. It's definitely a science, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And each prep is different because your body is different going into it. And I tell you, yeah, like you say, you're tracking everything.
And yeah, that's, you know, that's a good example because with Layla, like towards the tail end of it, she was eating more carbohydrates than I was, and I have, you know, 50 pounds on her. So once you figure out your body and how it responds to certain things, like you said, everybody's body's different, every prep is different. So yeah, like yeah, she's definitely someone that can tolerate a lot of carbohydrates and still drop body fat. So which is good because she didn't really have to suffer per se throughout the tail end of the prep. But yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah, definitely everybody's different.
Yeah, for sure. So if someone came to you that was thinking about competing or getting into bodybuilding, what's the best advice you would give them?
Number one, I would ask them their purpose of doing it. You know, because a lot of people, I do have a lot of people come to me and they like the idea of it, and sometimes for the wrong reasons. But if it's something, you know, it's a goal of yours, then I'm always, you know, it's just hard because I feel like social media being a big thing now and stuff like that, a lot of people tend to jump into the stage just to be recognized. And it's not something they really love to do, that they just like the idea of it. But for me, if someone approaches me for coaching, I basically tell them, like, you know, and for myself, it's like, you have to be all in on this, right? This is something that you have to want to do, It's not a walk in the ballpark. It's not something that is simple as just, you know, let's take some supplements and go to the gym and I'm going to be stage ready. Like I explain how difficult it is, both mentally and physically. And yeah, like, I mean, and if they're ready for it, then I'm all for it. But yeah, like I said, these days, especially social media and people compare each other to like one another. They'll see so-and-so, oh, I want to look like him. And that's where the PEDs come in and stuff like that at such a young age, because people see these people that have been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And that's what they think they need, when really they just need time to put into the sport, right? And to put into their diet and their training. And so I have had a lot of people come to me for coaching, and to be honest with you, I've steered a lot of people away as well, because they were doing it for the wrong reasons. They were wanting to look like so and so, and they were willing to sacrifice their health, you know, to be on stage, when that's not what this is about, right? Your health is number one. So
yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think it's a fantastic sport to get into. Like I said, it's something that I lived and breathed since I was a kid, but there's definitely a wrong way in going about it and a right way in going about it. But that's why I'm big on believing on having a good coach as well, right?
Yep.
It's having someone to guide you the right way, the right direction. So, but yeah, definitely ask yourself why you're doing it. And if you're not doing it for the right reasons, then I feel like it's not for you.
Yeah, great question for them. Absolutely. So one more question for each of you. Lila, what do you take behind stage when you're getting ready? What kind of things do you take with you behind the stage?
Yeah, I have whatever that my coach give it me, throw it in, rice cake or whatever band.
She's very spoiled as well, so everything's packed for her. She just does what I tell her to do. But for Layla, to answer the question for you, to make it easy, backstage she would have had her pump up bands, her rice cakes. She had natural almond butter. She had jam. What else did Layla have? She had some honey, and of course, you know, everything else she needs to be all glammed up. But yeah, Layla carved up on rice cakes prior to the show with honey. She used some almond butter, a little bit of jam here and there. So, and
That's delicious.
Yeah, she was actually, it was quite funny because she is new at this. So she like, there's certain terms that I would use. I'm like, oh, you know, you're a little bit flat. So what she decided, she didn't quite understand what flat meant. So when she wanted to get a little extra food, she'd be like, yeah, I feel like I'm flat. And I'm like, I feel like you don't even know what that means. You're trying to get extra food, right? Can I have a rice cake? I'm like, not yet. Right? So it was pretty funny, but it was cool to see that everything Cass had told her to do, and myself, that, you know, she trusts the process. And honestly, everything that we had told her would happen to her body, and, you know, when the timing was right for certain food groups and stuff. And she would look in the mirror and be like, oh my God, like, you're right. Right. So she definitely had full trust in us. But like you said, at that point in time, every little detail matters. Right. And it makes all the difference. So it definitely paid off. So yeah.
Yeah. So do you have a blanket to stay warm back there? It was pretty warm. Or do you take a blanket?
That day is really warm for me. In there, I don't have anything. I just keep warming up and running back to see other people on the stage, up and back and forth. And at the end, I almost didn't make it because I'm late. Get back in the state, and they try to call me anything, and I just in the line throw everything in and get out. Pretty fun.
Wonderful. And what do you take backstage with you, Jordan?
Myself, I actually had, well, the pump up bands, had some rice cakes, Pop-Tarts. I had almond butter, honey. I did bring a blanket because I fell asleep back there actually twice. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me for this year. A little bit of water. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. on that note, I just want to thank you both for joining me. This was great
absolutely.
to
Our
have you
pleasure.
both
Thank you for
here
having us.
together. And wish you luck in Vancouver.
Thank you.
And
Yes, thank you very much for having
Nice to
us.
see you and talk to you again soon.
yeah, for sure. We'll have to connect after your next show. See how things
Fantastic.
went.
Thank you.
I want to thank my guests today and my listeners for joining me at Beyond the Prep. If you like this episode and want to make sure you don't miss any others, please subscribe. You can also find us on YouTube.